The stars sparkled brilliantly against the velvet expanse of space, an endless sea of possibilities and promises. The Dipomerian flagship glided smoothly, its sleek lines and advanced technology a testament to the Empire's peaceful diplomacy and scientific prowess. Princess Hara stood on the observation deck, her deep blue eyes reflecting the shimmering cosmos outside. This mission was supposed to be a simple one, a routine trip to solidify alliances and ensure the continued peace her people cherished. Yet, a nagging feeling gnawed at her, an unshakable sense of foreboding that had settled in her chest since they departed. Princess Hara, a voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see Reichel, one of her most trusted advisors, approaching. His usually warm eyes seemed colder, more calculating. We're approaching the rendezvous point. All systems are operational. Thank you, Reichel, Hara replied, trying to shake off her unease. She gave him a reassuring smile, but it felt forced. She turned back to the window, hoping the vastness of space would soothe her nerves. Unbeknownst to her, the very people she trusted most were plotting her downfall. In the shadowed corners of the ship, hushed conversations and secretive exchanges were taking place. Loyalties had been bought, and the price of betrayal was about to be paid in blood. The first sign of trouble came as a sudden jolt, sending a ripple of alarm through the ship. Hera's heart skipped a beat as the lights flickered, and a low rumble reverberated through the hull. She pressed a button on her wrist communicator. Bridge, report. Before she could get an answer, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and the observation deck's panoramic windows flashed with the ominous glow of energy blasts. The once serene starscape was now a chaotic battleground. Princess, we are under attack, shouted a crew member, bursting into the observation deck. It's an ambush. Hara's mind raced. This was no ordinary attack, it was too coordinated, too precise. She realized with a sickening clarity that this had been planned. Her advisors had sold her out. We need to get you to the escape pods, Your Highness, the crew member urged, pulling her towards the door. Panic was spreading through the ship, but Hara forced herself to stay calm. As they raced through the corridors, the ship bucked and groaned under the relentless assault. Hera's thoughts were a whirlwind of disbelief and betrayal. How could her own people do this? Who could she trust now? Reaching the escape pod bay, they found chaos. Crew members were scrambling, trying to launch the pods amidst the explosions rocking the ship. Hera's protector shoved her into a pod, slamming the door shut. Stay safe, Princess. We'll hold them off as long as we can, he said, his voice grim. Hera's eyes met his, filled with gratitude and sorrow, just as another explosion tore through the bay, cutting off their connection. The pod's automated systems took over, and Hara felt a lurch as it was ejected into space. She strapped herself in, her hands trembling. Through the small viewport, she saw her ship, her home, being torn apart. Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away, focusing on survival. The pod hurtled towards the unknown planet below, its descent growing more violent as it entered the atmosphere. Flames licked the viewport, and the pod shook with terrifying force. Hara braced herself, knowing that the impact would be brutal. With a bone-jarring crash, the pod hit the ground, skidding to a halt amidst a dense forest. Smoke billowed from the wreckage, and the acrid smell of burning metal filled the air. Hera's head slammed against the console, and her vision blurred. She tried to stay conscious, but darkness enveloped her, pulling her into oblivion. The forest was silent once more, the only sign of disturbance the smoke rising from the shattered pod. Princess Hara lay unconscious inside, the weight of her empire's fate resting on her shoulders. Far above, the stars continued their indifferent dance, oblivious to the treachery and turmoil unfolding below. The twilight sky over the dense forest was a canvas of purples and pinks, streaked with the lingering glow of the setting sun. Kristoff stood atop the watchtower, scanning the horizon with a mixture of boredom and diligence. The forest had always been serene, a place of refuge from the chaos of military life. But tonight, the tranquility was shattered by a sudden streak of light tearing through the heavens. He watched in awe as the fiery trail grew brighter, its descent swift and unrelenting. The object, a capsule, hurtled through the atmosphere, its trajectory ending somewhere deep within the forest. Kristoff's heart pounded. Crashes were rare, and this one seemed different, urgent. He grabbed his communicator and reported to base, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. Unidentified object has crash-landed in Sector 7 billion, requesting immediate reconnaissance and medical support. The response was swift, authoritative. Proceed with caution, Kristoff. Reinforcements are on their way. Kristoff descended the watchtower with practiced ease, his military training kicking in. He slung his rifle over his shoulder and set off into the forest, the path illuminated by the flickering light of the crash. The underbrush crackled beneath his boots as he navigated the familiar terrain, his senses heightened. As he neared the crash site, the acrid smell of burning metal filled the air. Kristoff's eyes widened at the sight before him, a sleek, silver capsule, half buried in the forest floor, smoke billowing from its damaged exterior. He approached cautiously, weapon at the ready, and peered inside through a cracked viewport. There, slumped against the controls, was a figure. A woman, her face pale and bloodied, a shimmering gown torn and scorched. Kristoff's breath caught in his throat. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen, an ethereal beauty, even in such a dire state. Without a second thought, Kristoff pried open the hatch, the heat from the wreckage searing his hands. He reached inside and gently lifted the unconscious woman, noting the intricate insignia on her attire. This was no ordinary crash victim. Her attire and the craftsmanship of the capsule spoke of advanced technology, far beyond what he was accustomed to. He cradled her in his arms, feeling the faint pulse at her wrist. "Hang on," he whispered, more to himself than to her. "You're going to be okay." The journey back to the base was arduous. Kristoff moved quickly but carefully, avoiding the roughest terrain to keep her injuries from worsening. The forest seemed to close in around them, shadows stretching longer as night fell. He could feel the weight of his responsibility growing heavier with each step. Finally, the base's lights pierced the darkness, guiding him to safety. Medics rushed to his side as he entered, taking the woman from his arms and placing her on a stretcher. Kristoff followed, his concern palpable. "Found her in the wreckage," he explained to the chief medic. "She needs immediate attention." The medics worked swiftly, their movements a blur of efficiency and care. Kristoff watched from a distance, his mind racing with questions. Who was she? What had brought her here? Hours later, as the base settled into its nightly routine, Kristoff sat beside the woman's bed in the infirmary. Her breathing had stabilized, but she remained unconscious. He leaned forward, studying her features, the curve of her jaw, the delicate lines etched by pain and exhaustion. Suddenly, her eyes fluttered open, a deep, mesmerizing blue meeting his gaze. Kristoff straightened, a mixture of relief and curiosity flooding through him. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice weak but steady. "You're safe," Kristoff replied gently. "You crashed on Earth. I found you in the forest." She nodded, wincing slightly as she adjusted herself. "Thank you," she whispered. "I am Princess Hara of the Depomerian Empire. My mission, it was a trap. I was betrayed." Kristoff's mind reeled at the revelation. A princess? Betrayal? The implications were staggering. "Princess Hera, you're safe here. We'll help you." Her eyes darkened with fear and determination. "No, you don't understand. The people who attacked me, they're your own. They're coming." Kristoff's blood ran cold. Betrayal within his own ranks. The gravity of her words hit him like a punch to the gut. He nodded, his resolve hardening. "Then we'll be ready. I promise you, Princess, I will protect you." As the night wore on, Kristoff stayed by Hara's side, his mind racing with plans and contingencies. The once tranquil forest was now a battleground, and he was determined to fight, for the princess, for the truth, and for the honor of his people. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would test his courage, his loyalty, and his very soul. "Princess Hara, you're safe for now. But we don't have much time. General Xena's forces will be searching for you." Hera's eyes, still heavy with sleep, locked onto Kristoff's. The gravity of her predicament began to sink in, and she forced herself to sit up despite the pain. "Thank you for saving me, Kristoff," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you need to know something. The people who attacked me, they were your own." Kristoff's eyes widened in shock. He had suspected betrayal, but hearing it confirmed by Hara was a different matter entirely. "My own people," he repeated, his voice a mix of disbelief and anger. "Yes," Hara replied, her voice gaining strength. "Your General Xena is working with the rival faction from my empire. They ambushed my convoy. I barely escaped with my life." A tense silence filled the room as Kristoff processed this revelation. The betrayal within his ranks cut deep, but there was no time to dwell on it. He stood abruptly, determination hardening his features. "We need to move. If Xena's men are involved, They'll stop at nothing to capture you. Hara nodded, her resolve mirroring Kristoff's. She swung her legs over the side of the makeshift bed, wincing as her feet touched the cold floor. Kristoff offered his hand, helping her to stand. Despite the pain, Hera felt a surge of strength. She was no longer just a princess, she was a survivor, and she would fight for her people. Kristoff led Hera through a maze of corridors, the base a labyrinth of steel and concrete hidden beneath the forest floor. As they approached the exit, Kristoff spoke in hushed tones, explaining his plan. We have a safe spot a few miles from here. It's remote, and we should be able to hide there until we can figure out our next move. But we can't go alone, he paused, his gaze intense. I need to contact someone I trust implicitly. They reached a small communication room, where Kristoff swiftly sent an encrypted message. Minutes later, a reply came, and Kristoff's expression softened with relief. Olivia will meet us there. She's one of the best, and we can trust her. They exited the base, the cool morning air a sharp contrast to the claustrophobic confines they left behind. Hera took a deep breath, the fresh scent invigorating her spirit. Together, they navigated through the dense forest, each step taking them further from danger and closer to potential salvation. Hours later, they arrived at the safe spot, a secluded cabin nestled in a thicket, nearly invisible among the towering trees. Olivia was already there, her sharp eyes scanning the surroundings. She was a tall, athletic woman with a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately put Hera at ease. Kristoff Olivia greeted him with a brief nod before turning her attention to Hera. Princess, it's an honor. We don't have much time. Xena's forces will be relentless. Inside the cabin, they quickly formulated a plan. Olivia had already gathered intelligence on Xena's operations, and her insight was invaluable. They decided to launch a series of sabotage missions to weaken Xena's hold, targeting communication centers and supply depots. Hera, though still recovering, insisted on being involved. This fight is as much mine as it is yours, she said firmly. I won't hide while others risk their lives for my safety. Kristoff and Olivia exchanged glances before nodding in agreement. They knew they needed her knowledge and determination. As night fell, the trio prepared for their first mission. Hera felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. She was stepping into the unknown, but she was not alone. With Kristoff and Olivia by her side, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The darkness of the forest cloaked their movements as they made their way to the first target, a communication center vital to Xena's operations. They moved silently, their training and instincts guiding them through the shadows. Hera's heart pounded in her chest, but her resolve never wavered. They reached the perimeter, and Olivia signaled for them to halt. This is it, she whispered. Remember, we hit fast and hard, then disappear before they know what happened. With precise coordination, they infiltrated the center. Kristoff and Olivia disabled the guards, while Hera planted the explosives. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness, but finally, they were ready. Now, Kristoff said, his voice a low command. They retreated swiftly, the explosion lighting up the night behind them. The success of their mission fueled their determination, and they knew this was just the beginning. Back at the cabin, Hera sent a coded message to her people, warning them of the betrayal and rallying them to the cause. She could only hope that her message would reach them in time. As they regrouped and prepared for the next mission, Hera looked at Kristoff and Olivia, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and solidarity. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for a future where loyalty and honor prevailed. And with each step they took, they moved closer to confronting General Xena and dismantling his treacherous plans, one mission at a time. The night air was thick with tension as Kristoff, Hera, and Olivia huddled around a flickering holographic map in their makeshift hideout. The glow from the map cast eerie shadows on the rough stone walls, a stark contrast to the tranquil forest outside. The trio had found temporary refuge in an abandoned bunker deep within the woods, a place where time seemed to have stood still since the last Great War. These are our primary targets, Kristoff said, pointing to several red dots scattered across the map. Xena's communication centers and supply depots. If we hit them hard, we can disrupt his operations long enough to send out a distress signal. Hera nodded, her eyes narrowing in determination. Her injuries had healed significantly, thanks to the medical care Kristoff had arranged, but the fire in her heart burned brighter than ever. She was no longer just a princess, she was a warrior fighting for the survival of her people. I can access the Dipomerian network from here, Hera said, tapping a small device on her wrist. If I can get a clear signal, I can warn the loyal fleet and Earth authorities. but we'll need to create a diversion. Olivia, her dark eyes gleaming with resolve, leaned in closer. I'll handle the explosives. We need to make sure Xena's men are too distracted to notice your transmission. As the plan took shape, the air in the bunker buzzed with a mix of anxiety and excitement. They knew the risks were immense, but the stakes were even higher. The fate of the Depomerian Empire and Earth rested on their shoulders. The first target was a communication center nestled in the heart of a nearby valley. Under the cover of darkness, Kristoff, Hara, and Olivia moved silently through the forest, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of leaves. The moonlight filtered through the canopy, casting silver beams that danced on the forest floor. When they reached the edge of the valley, Kristoff signaled for them to halt. He scanned the area with his binoculars, spotting the guards patrolling the perimeter. 3 guards at the entrance, and 2 on the towers, he whispered. We need to take them out quietly. Hara, her senses honed by years of training, moved with feline grace. She dispatched the guards with precise, silent strikes, each one falling before they could raise an alarm. Olivia followed closely, planting small charges at strategic points around the center. With the guards neutralized and the explosives in place, Hera positioned herself near a relay tower. She activated her wrist device, sending a signal that piggybacked on the communication center's network. Her fingers flew over the controls, her face illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. Come on, she muttered, her heart pounding. The device beeped, and a secure channel opened. This is Princess Hara of the Depomerian Empire. We are under attack by General Xena's forces. Requesting immediate assistance from loyal fleet and Earth authorities. Coordinates to follow. As she transmitted the message, a sudden explosion rocked the valley. Olivia's charges had detonated, creating a fiery spectacle that drew the attention of Xena's men. The communication center was engulfed in flames, the guards scrambling in chaos. Time to move, Kristoff shouted, grabbing Hara's arm. They sprinted through the forest, the roar of the explosions echoing behind them. Hara glanced back, her heart swelling with a mix of relief and dread. The message was sent, but they were far from safe. For the next few days, the trio continued their sabotage missions, hitting supply depots and communication hubs with surgical precision. Each strike brought them closer to their ultimate goal, but the danger increased with every step. Xena's forces were relentless, hunting them with the ferocity of wolves. During a brief respite in their hideout, Hara received a reply on her wrist device. The screen flickered to life, displaying a message from the Depomerian fleet. Message received. Reinforcements en route. Hold your position. Hara's heart leaped with hope. They got the message. Help is coming. Kristoff and Olivia shared a triumphant look, but they knew the battle was far from over. They had to hold out until reinforcements arrived, and Xena's forces were closing in. The nights grew longer, the attacks more frequent, but their resolve never wavered. One evening, as they prepared for another mission, a sudden tremor shook the ground. They rushed outside to see Xena's forces advancing through the forest, their silhouettes outlined against the setting sun. The final assault had begun. Kristoff, Hara, and Olivia braced themselves for the fight of their lives. With the loyal Depomerian fleet on its way and Earth authorities alerted, they knew they had to hold the line. The future of their worlds depended on their courage and determination. As the first shots rang out, Hara steeled herself, her eyes blazing with defiance. She had come too far to back down now. With Kristoff and Olivia by her side, she faced the enemy with unwavering resolve, ready to fight for her people's future. The battle for survival had truly begun. The moonless night cloaked the landscape in a shroud of darkness, perfect for the impending operation. The air was thick with tension as Kristoff, Hara, and Olivia made final preparations for what they knew would be their most dangerous mission yet. In the quiet before the storm, they gathered around a flickering holomap, the illuminated lines casting eerie shadows on their determined faces. We know Xena's flagship, the Dominator, is stationed just beyond the outskirts of the city, Kristoff began, his voice steady but low. It's heavily guarded, but if we can disable its power systems, we can cripple their operations and buy enough time for reinforcements to arrive. Hara nodded, her eyes steely with resolve. This is our only chance. We must strike hard and fast. Failure is not an option. Olivia, the tech genius of their trio, activated a small device that projected a detailed layout of the Dominator. I've identified a weak point in their defenses, she explained. If we can infiltrate through the maintenance shafts, we'll avoid most of the patrols and have a clear path to the power core. The plan was risky, bordering on suicidal, but there was no turning back. They geared up in silence, the gravity of their task weighing heavily on their shoulders. With a final glance at each other, they moved out, shadows blending seamlessly into the night. Reaching the outskirts of the city, they crouched behind a crumbling wall, eyes fixed on the massive silhouette of the Dominator looming against the starless sky. Its dark hull glinted ominously, and the faint hum of its power systems reverberated through the ground. Kristoff signaled for them to move, and they darted from cover to cover, inching closer to their target. The night was eerily quiet, the usual sounds of the city muted, as if the world held its breath for what was to come. As they approached the ship, Olivia's fingers danced over her handheld device, disabling security systems with practiced ease. They reached the maintenance hatch, a small, inconspicuous entry point on the ship's underbelly. Kristoff pried it open, and one by one, they slipped inside, swallowed by the cold, metallic innards of the Dominator. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of oil and machinery. The narrow shaft forced them to crawl on hands and knees, every sound amplified in the confined space. Heartbeats pounded in unison, echoing the ticking clock of their dwindling time. They emerged into a dimly lit corridor, deserted and silent. Olivia checked the holomap again, her face illuminated by its glow. This way, she whispered, leading them through the labyrinthine passages. They moved with precision, each step calculated, each breath measured. The further they ventured, the more palpable the danger became. Footsteps echoed down the corridors, and the trio pressed against the walls, holding their breath as patrols passed mere inches away. At last, they reached the power core chamber, a cavernous room dominated by a massive, pulsating reactor. The hum of energy was deafening, vibrating through their bones. Olivia set to work immediately, her hands a blur as she connected her device to the reactor's control panel. "Keep watch," she muttered, her concentration unbroken. Kristoff and Hara took positions by the entrance, their senses heightened. Every creak, every shadow sent adrenaline surging through their veins. Minutes felt like hours, each second stretching into eternity. Suddenly, alarms blared, red lights flashing throughout the chamber. "They've detected us," Olivia shouted, her fingers flying over the controls. "I need more time." Kristoff and Hara sprang into action, blasters drawn. Xena's forces stormed the room, and a fierce firefight erupted. Blaster bolts ricocheted off walls, sparks flying in every direction. Kristoff's military training kicked in, his movements swift and deadly. Hara fought with a ferocity born of desperation, her every strike a testament to her will to survive. "Just a few more seconds," Olivia yelled, sweat streaming down her face. Hara and Kristoff held their ground, their resolve unyielding. Finally, with a triumphant cry, Olivia severed the reactor's power link. The lights flickered and died, plunging the chamber into darkness. The hum of the reactor sputtered and ceased, the ship shuddering as its systems failed. "Let's move," Kristoff shouted, covering their retreat as they dashed back through the corridors. The Dominator was in chaos, crew members scrambling in the dark, unaware of the full extent of the sabotage. They emerged into the night, the ship's alarms fading behind them. Explosions rocked the ground as the power core went critical, tearing through the Dominator's hull. Flames erupted, casting a hellish glow across the landscape. From a safe distance, they watched as the flagship of General Xena's fleet was consumed by fire, its dominance shattered. Exhausted but victorious, Hara, Kristoff, and Olivia shared a moment of silent triumph. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. They knew their journey was just beginning, but for now, they allowed themselves a brief respite, the first breath of hope in what felt like an eternity. In the quiet aftermath, Hera turned to Kristoff, her eyes shining with gratitude and determination. "This is just the beginning. Together, we will see this through to the end." Kristoff nodded, a rare smile crossing his lips. "For the Dipomerian Empire, and for Earth. We fight as one." As dawn broke on the horizon, they stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The final assault had been a success, but the real fight for peace and justice was only beginning. The night was unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence that precedes a storm. Kristoff, Hara, and Olivia moved through the shadows, their breaths shallow and their nerves taut. The Dominator loomed ahead, an ominous silhouette against the starry sky, its sleek, dark hull shimmering with an eerie glow. It was the heart of General Xena's power, a fortress in space. The trio's plan hinged on precision and timing. They had to create a diversion, slip past the defenses, and disable the power systems before Xena's forces could react. It was a nearly impossible task, but desperation had sharpened their resolve. Failure was not an option. Kristoff led the way, his soldier instincts honed to perfection. He signaled to Hera and Olivia, and they moved in unison, each step calculated. They approached the perimeter of the Dominator, where security was tightest. Guards patrolled the area, their eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of intruders. Olivia, the tech genius, hacked into the security grid, creating a momentary blackout. In those precious seconds they slipped through, their movements swift and silent. Inside the fortress, the corridors were a labyrinth of steel and shadows. The air was heavy with tension. Every corner a potential trap. Hera felt a surge of adrenaline. Her senses were heightened, every sound amplified. She glanced at Kristoff, who nodded, his eyes reflecting the same determination. Together, they made their way to the power core, the nerve center of the Dominator. The power core was heavily guarded, as expected. Kristoff signaled Olivia, who prepared an EMP device. They had only one chance to use it. The guards would notice the disruption instantly. Timing was crucial. "Ready," Olivia whispered, her fingers flying over the device. "Now," Kristoff ordered. Now. The EMP pulse radiated through the corridors, plunging the Dominator into chaos. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered before going out. In the ensuing darkness, the trio moved with precision, taking out the disoriented guards. Hera's combat skills were a blur of motion, her movements graceful and lethal. They reached the power core, a massive chamber filled with humming machinery. Olivia got to work, her hands steady despite the urgency. She bypassed the security protocols, her mind a whirlwind of calculations. Sweat dripped from her brow, but her focus never wavered. "Done," she said, stepping back. The power systems shut down, and the Dominator shuddered. They had bought themselves time, but the real battle was just beginning. General Xena's elite forces, alerted by the chaos, converged on their location. The corridors erupted in a frenzy of combat. Kristoff led the charge, his rifle spitting fire. Hera fought beside him, her moves a deadly dance. The clash of metal and the crack of gunfire echoed through the ship. Olivia provided cover, her sharp shooting skills picking off enemies with deadly accuracy. In the heart of the Dominator, the battle reached its peak. General Xena, clad in imposing armor, confronted them. His eyes were cold, his presence a dark shadow. "You think you can defeat me?" Xena sneered, his voice a venomous hiss. "We will stop you," Hera replied, her voice unwavering. The fight was brutal, a clash of wills and strength. Xena was a formidable opponent, his strikes powerful and precise. But Kristoff and Hera fought with a fury born of desperation and determination. They had come too far to fail now. The battle raged on, each blow resonating with the weight of their mission. Olivia, despite her position as support, found herself drawn into the fray, her skills proving invaluable. Together, they were a force to be reckoned with. Finally, in a moment of sheer willpower and coordination, Kristoff and Hera overpowered Xena. The general fell, his defeat marked by the silence that followed. The Dominator, without its leader, was vulnerable. "Let's finish this," Kristoff said, his voice resolute. They planted explosives in the critical sections of the ship, their movements swift and deliberate. As they made their escape, the Dominator began to crumble, explosions ripping through its structure. The trio barely made it out, the force of the final explosion propelling them into space. They floated, weightless, watching as the once mighty Dominator disintegrated in a blaze of fire and debris. Victory was theirs, but the cost had been high. As they drifted towards their ship, the reality of their ordeal sank in. They had faced insurmountable odds and emerged triumphant. Back on their ship, as the stars glittered around them, Hera, Kristoff, and Olivia allowed themselves a moment of relief. They had defeated General Xena and destroyed his flagship, securing a future for their people. Hera looked at Kristoff, a sense of gratitude and camaraderie in her eyes. "We did it," she said softly. Kristoff nodded, a rare smile breaking through his stern exterior. Together, as they set course for home, the bond forged in battle remained strong. They had faced the darkness and emerged into the light, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The galaxy was vast, but they had each other, and that was enough. The Dominator erupted in a blaze of light and fire, fragments of the once mighty flagship scattering into the void like the shattered hopes of General Xena. The silence that followed the explosion was deafening, a stark contrast to the cacophony of battle that had raged only moments before. Hara, Kristoff, and Olivia stood on the bridge, their breaths coming in ragged gasps, their bodies bruised and battered but triumphant. Hera's gaze was fixed on the viewport, watching as the remnants of Xena's fleet began to scatter. The enemy's morale had crumbled with the destruction of their leader and his flagship. The Dipomerian princess felt a weight lift from her shoulders, a sense of peace she hadn't known in what felt like an eternity. Kristoff, Hara began, her voice soft but resolute. We've done it. Xena is defeated. Kristoff nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. We did it together, he said, looking at both Hara and Olivia. None of this would have been possible without all of us. Olivia, ever the pragmatic one, was already at a console, sending out a signal to the loyal Dipomerian fleet and Earth authorities. I'm transmitting Hara's message now, she announced. They need to know the threat has been neutralized and that we need immediate support. As the message was sent, Hera allowed herself a moment to reflect. She thought of her home, the Dipomerian Empire, known for its advanced technology and peaceful diplomacy. The betrayal she had faced, the ambush, the crash on Earth, it all seemed like a distant nightmare now. She had found unexpected allies in Kristoff and Olivia, and together they had overcome insurmountable odds. Moments later, a response came through. The loyal Dipomerian fleet, having received Hara's warning, was on its way. Earth authorities, too, were mobilizing their forces to provide assistance and ensure that no remnants of Xena's faction could threaten peace again. The journey back to Earth was quiet, each member of the trio lost in their thoughts. The battle had been won, but the scars, both visible and invisible, would take time to heal. Hara found herself glancing at Kristoff, marveling at the strength and resilience of the human soldier who had risked everything to help her. As they landed back on Earth, they were greeted by a delegation of officials from both the Dipomerian fleet and Earth authorities. Hera stepped forward, her regal bearing unmistakable despite her weariness. The threat has been eliminated, she announced. General Xena's reign of terror is over. There was a moment of stunned silence before the crowd erupted in cheers. Hara felt a sense of pride and accomplishment, knowing that her message had reached those who needed it most. She turned to Kristoff and Olivia, who stood by her side, sharing in the moment of victory. Days turned into weeks as the remnants of Xena's forces were rounded up and peace was gradually restored. The Dipomerian fleet and Earth authorities worked together, their newfound alliance stronger than ever. Hara found herself deeply involved in the rebuilding efforts, her diplomatic skills invaluable in forging new bonds and ensuring lasting peace. Kristoff, too, played a crucial role, his knowledge of Earth's military and strategic acumen proving indispensable. He and Hara spent long hours together, planning, strategizing, and occasionally finding moments of quiet reflection amidst the chaos. Their bond grew deeper, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. One evening, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the bustling activity below, Hara turned to Kristoff. You saved my life, she said softly. More than once. I don't know how to thank you. Kristoff smiled, a rare expression of warmth crossing his usually stoic features. You don't need to thank me, Hera. We did this together, and I have a feeling our work is far from over. Hara nodded, feeling a sense of contentment and anticipation for the future. Indeed, there's much to do. But with allies like you and Olivia, I have hope that we can create a better future for both our peoples. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the horizon, Hara and Kristoff stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their journey had been one of hardship and triumph, betrayal and trust, but in the end it had brought them together. United in their commitment to justice and harmony, they looked forward to a future of peace and cooperation, their bond a testament to the power of unity and friendship.